I want to thank everyone for gathering here today at the Emergency Operations Center in preparation for the incoming Hurricane Iselle that's hopefully going to be downgraded to a tropical storm by the time it gets to Oahu. But we always prepare for the worst. Prepare for the worst and hope for the best. I cut my trip short from Japan by 2 days to make it back here before we started to feel the effects of this storm. I thought it was very important for all of us to be together. We just finished a cabinet meeting where we went through all the different things the different departments in the City and County of Honolulu had to do. I think it's probably the first time that I'm aware of it in my time at the city, both as a managing director or acting mayor and now as mayor, that we've met. And I've gone through several of these emergencies, but first time we all came together. When I arrived in Honolulu, I immediately came here to the Emergency Operations Center, sat down with Mel Kaku and Peter Hirai and others, got a briefing of where we were. Then we had our cabinet meeting, and we're back here to report about the things that we're going to be doing. And the number one message I want to ask everyone, and I'm hoping that all of you members of the press will broadcast out to your viewers and readers, is that we ask you, just like us, to plan for the worst and hope for the best and be flexible. That means listening to the news, finding out what's happening to this hurricane. Is it going to be downgraded? What kind of things do you need to do, and be prepared and flexible, but not to overreact either. I was hearing stories when I was in Japan about the lines at Costco and water being sold out, and people who I believe are overreacting in ways that they didn't need to, and causes problems for everyone else. So some common sense is important, but at the same time being prepared. And we want to talk a little bit about being prepared. Before I do that, I would like, Peter, if you could just update the press on where things stand at the current time.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At the current time, all city departments are being prepared to fully activate the City Emergency Operations Center. Every city department has been striving, we're all one big team, to prepare the city for the worst and to make sure our residents are also prepared. Not only city departments, but all of our private partners, such as American Red Cross, Oahu Visitors Bureau, everybody involved in taking care of our residents, taking care of our visitors. We've all been working together here at the Emergency Operations Center. When we fully staff tomorrow morning, we'll be prepared to provide those services and make sure that the city does respond appropriately to whatever comes our way. Thank you.
Peter, I was hoping you could let the press know what time you're going to be opening
Sure.
for full service at the EOC, and then where we stand in terms of the hurricane, where it is right now, and where we expect it to be as it arrives towards Oahu.
So as you know from the Central Pacific Hurricane Center, they have taken over the responsibility for reporting the hurricane and for giving us their best technical knowledge and their best technical advice possible so we can make our decisions. So it has entered Hawaiian waters, what we consider Hawaiian waters, or the Central Pacific area of responsibility. And because of that, we have taken steps. We have our city internal checklists that we have been doing. And as part of that is to prepare the Emergency Operations Center for opening. And what else was it? Oh, okay. And the EOC will be open tomorrow morning, first thing in the morning, 8 a.m. We'll be opening to participate in our team conference call with the state, with the other counties. And from that point on, the Emergency Operations Center will be fully operational.
Thank you. So in terms of the things that the city is going to be doing, and we are working closely with our partners at the state and the federal government, one thing we're going to be doing is we're going to be opening up 10 shelters around the island. They're going to open up at 10 tomorrow evening. They're going to be all volunteer staffed by the American Red Cross. We want to thank the American Red Cross for their helping us with this. We're asking residents to go to the shelter as a last resort choice. It's better to shelter at home, have enough water, batteries, those kinds of things to help you staying sheltered in place for up to 7 days. But not to go to the shelter just because you think we should go there and see what it's like. It's a last resort decision. As part of that, we are going to also have bus service taking people to the shelter. So we have regular bus service that's going to continue to operate through tomorrow, through Thursday, up until the late evening. The last routes, when they end. On Friday, there will not be normal bus service, but we will have emergency bus service that will be taking people to the 10 shelters that are located around this island, and that's going to include our homeless population too. Jun Yang, who's here with us today, has been working, had a telephone conference call earlier today with all the service providers. They are reaching out to the homeless population, letting them know that they could be in inundation zones and areas where there could be high winds, and that we're going to be providing this emergency bus service. It will travel through areas where they're known to be located, and we're hoping that they'll get on the bus along with our residents. The good news about these shelters is for the first time we have 5 shelters that are pet friendly. So you're going to be able to bring your pet onto the bus as long as it's in a cage or on leash. You can also bring things onto the bus. You can't bring large things. You can't bring a shopping cart, for example, but you can bring a bag, overnight bag for clothes and those kinds of things. But that's really to encourage people that really do feel they need to leave their place where they're living or residing, but they don't want to because they have a pet. And so we want to thank the bus for doing this, and they're going to continue this emergency bus service into 1 hour before the impact of the storm arrives on Oahu. So that will be going on throughout the day. We're going to be closing all of our parks at 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, Thursday, including Hanauma Bay, and we're going to keep them closed until we see what happens with the storm. Should it pass quickly, we'll then make a decision to open up on Saturday. Should it linger, we'll make the decision at a later time, and we'll let you know. Some people are asking, is the county government going to continue to remain in business on Friday? We're not going to make that decision today. We're going to see what happens over the next 24 hours or so as the hurricane goes over the Big Island. Perhaps it will be downgraded even more. Perhaps it'll be split in two. The mighty Mauna Loa and Mauna Kea goes up to almost 13,000 feet. They can do a lot to a storm like this, and perhaps it'll shear it off. So we're gonna wait and see. And that also goes to making an emergency declaration. I'm not going to be making one today. I'll be waiting until I'll make it by noon tomorrow. And again, we're going to get more up-to-date information before we make such a decision. We're going to continue with trash pickup on a normal basis through Thursday, and again, we'll make the decision by the end of Thursday as to what we're going to be doing regarding trash pickup on Friday and Saturday. Division of Facility Maintenance is a critical department in a time like this. They've been out around the island for the past day or two, clearing streams to make sure that they don't get backed up by debris. They're doing everything they possibly can to be prepared as part of the recovery operation once the storm passes over. We're going to be closing down our satellite city halls. Most likely, we're going to be looking again to see how it goes. But we will be announcing that. At this point, I'm going to call up a few others to ask them to expand on some of the things that I said. And I thought we'd start first with the police. They're critical. Our first responders, as you know, are critical at a time like this. We cannot do our job. I can't do my job as the mayor to protect all of us unless we have our first responders. So I'd like the police.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Assistant Chief Alan Blumke. Currently, HPD is ready to address any emergencies that we may encounter during the storm. All our personnel, the commanders, have instructed their personnel to limit any kind of vacation leave or time off to minimize any absences of personnel. So we should be at maximum staffing for that. Also, the elements and district stations have checked their facilities, prepared by fueling up their white cars, stocked up on flares, and should be ready to go. We've also asked the patrol officers to assist in checking coastal areas, and if possible, to let beach goers or homeless population on there to be prepared to be ready to evacuate.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Chief Nevis?
Chief Nevis, Honolulu Fire Department. A storm such as this will bring many threats to our community. We're talking about high winds, surf, rain, lightning, thunder, flooding. I'm going to talk a little bit about fire safety. Sometimes the power will go out during a storm such as this. So one thing that we do recommend is that if you're using a stove or an oven, when the power does go off, make sure you turn that element off before the power goes back on. Sometimes you're not in the room or you evacuate or some other reasons, but we get many calls of people leaving their stoves and ovens on after a power outage. The other thing we want to recommend is to use battery-operated illumination devices, flashlights, lanterns, and try to stay away from candles. But if you do use candles, make sure they're never unattended. So those are the tips that we want to pass on to our community to keep them safe for fire safety.
Thank you, Chief. Mark Riggs, MS.
Yeah, Mark Rigg with the Emergency Medical Services. Just a few reminders to the public. We'll be prepared to respond to all your emergencies. We've added additional resources to manage the hurricane that's coming. One thing that I would like to suggest is to not call the ambulance if you want to be transported to an evacuation center. If you call the ambulance, be prepared to be transported to an emergency room. Also, in regards to your medications, please gather and organize all your medications, put them in a safe, dry place where you can access them easily. If you or your family members are on ventilators at home, be prepared for the power to go out. Be prepared to have generator backup, fuel for your generator to get you through the times that the power is out. And that's it. Just be safe out there.
Before you leave, could you talk a little bit about the large surf and what your life
And what I'd like to do, Mayor, is bring Chief Howe to talk
great.
about ocean safety. Chief Jim Howe.
Thank you. Hi. Thanks. Jim Howell, Ocean Safety. We've been very carefully monitoring both Iselle and Julio, which is right behind it. And what we know is that the surf is going to build. There's going to be significant surf. It's going to impact many shorelines, and it's going to really have an impact on what's going on at our beaches and our oceans. One of the things we're most concerned about is our lifeguard towers themselves. So if you see the lifeguard towers closed on Friday, it doesn't mean that there is not ocean safety service. It means that we've asked our employees not to open the towers. We're afraid that the wind may rip them apart, literally. And also with lightning strikes, those towers are highly susceptible to lightning strikes and can be very dangerous for our employees. So we're going to pull them back into vehicles. They will be out at the beaches, but we will not have quite as high a profile presence as we normally do. We'll be able to respond quickly to your needs, but the best way to ride out this storm is not to go in the ocean. Remember, with lightning and big surf and high winds, just all kinds of bad things can happen. So we ask everybody, please be safe, kind of stay away from the beaches, don't get hurt.
Thank you. I would like to emphasize that, as you know, when we have tsunami events and we ask people to stay away from the shoreline, and what do we see? You guys run down and you film the person standing on the Kuhio groin or out on the reef in Waikiki, and we talk about that one foolish person. And to emphasize what the last point that was made, our parks are going to be closed, and many of our beaches are on our parks. So we're really asking to respect. When the park is closed, please don't go through the park and go onto the beach. The lifeguards are going to be there, and their lives are put in danger if they have to go out and rescue someone. So respect the warning. And don't endanger others and yourself. We really request that. Of course, we'll see you guys out there doing crazy things. I would also like to, is Mike Formby here? Yeah. All right, Mike, could you just talk a little bit more about bus and handy-van?
Yeah, thank you. So the mayor did talk about generally some of the restrictions on the bus operation. I have Roger Morton and Ralph Alfata here, and they can answer any specific questions you might have later. But for Thursday, normal operations until 12 a.m. So no transit riders should plan on boarding a bus after 12 a.m. That's only about 10 to 15 buses after 12 a.m. But basically get on your bus by 12 a.m. if you want to get home. Between 10 p.m. and 1 a.m. on Thursday, we'll be doing evacuation routes to the 10 shelters, and we have schematics for each of you. We hope that you'll distribute these, as well as narratives of those bus routes so that the public can learn how they can get on a bus to get to the evacuation shelter. For handy vans, only emergency transports, and you would call 456-5555. So if you're a handy van passenger and you're in an emergency situation, then you would call 456-5555. The plan right now is no bus service on Friday because we need to give people some definitive knowledge as far as what's going to be operating, but the mayor reserves the right to restore bus service on Friday given conditions. So if the roads are safe, if the weather's good, the mayor will call for bus to resume operations on Friday. And basically we anticipate regular scheduled service on Saturday. So if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer with Roger and Ralph, and please make sure you get one of these handouts. Thank you.
Next, I'd like to ask Ernie Lau to come up. Board of Water Supply chief, and perhaps you could also talk a little bit about storage of water and other issues you're concerned about.
Thank you. I know that when storms come up like this, water is a very important factor that everybody thinks about because we can't really survive without water for a sustained period of time. It's very important. The recommendations is at least 1 gallon for sanitation and drinking purposes per person per day. So if you got a large family, you'll have to store a large amount of water. I know there's been some talk about difficulty in buying bottled water at different places, and because of demand, they've run out. But just think back, you have a tap or a faucet in your kitchen that provides high quality, safe drinking water there that just costs fractions of a penny per gallon. So if you can find some good, clean containers, take the proper disinfection approaches to cleaning out that container, you can actually store water on your own that you can use for the storm event. So look at that. We have issued a press release. We talk about using some bleach, household bleach, to actually, first of all, mix with a gallon of water, swished around in that container to help disinfect it, let it sit there, then rinse it out with tap water, which is clean, and maybe add a drop of bleach after that to store it. But make sure it's a good, clean container, not a old pickle jar or something, or your water will taste like pickles. We are working very hard. We will have staff working through the storm, monitoring the condition of the water system, and we already have deployed a number of generators to some of our major pumping stations to provide some basic water service. We depend on electricity, and hopefully the storm won't cause electricity to go out for a sustained period of time, but if it does, we do have some generators to help provide water for survival. Thank you.
Thank you. Finally, I'd like to ask Ross Asamura, the Director of Division of Facility Maintenance, just to talk about what he's been doing for the past couple days, what he's going to be doing, and then maybe you could make a request about people, please don't throw things like bicycles down storm drains and those kind of things. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon. My name is Ross Asamura. I'm the Director and Chief Engineer of the Department of Facility Maintenance. As Mayor Caldwell stated, this storm event is one that we take very seriously. It's something that we've been preparing for at least for several days, if not for the past week, in making sure that all of the drainage infrastructure that we have is flowing properly. So one of the important things that we want to make sure is that those drainage canals and drainage channels that are flowing, that need to flow during the storm event, are able to do so. So we ask residents not to dispose of any large debris, any tree branches, anything that can cause an accumulation that would endanger all of the properties and all of the people surrounding that drainage channel. In addition, if there are issues with storm drainage on streets with curbs and storm drains, we want to make sure that storm drain inlets are all clear to receive storm waters. We've instructed all of the contractors working on both private construction projects as well as city construction projects to remove what are called gutter buddies, which are basically storm drain inlet protection devices. Those have to be removed prior to the storm event. They can be put back immediately after. But we really ask the public not to open any manhole covers in the street in an attempt to drain the street, because not only does that cause inflows into potentially the sewer system, which is not designed to handle that type of stormwater inflow, it also poses a traffic safety and public safety hazard for people that may be unaware of an open hole in a street and may either fall into it or drive into it and cause harm, not only to themselves but perhaps other people. So we ask for everybody to please shelter at a public shelter, shelter in place, stay off the street during the storm event, and if there are any issues that arise, report it to 911 immediately. Thank you.
Thank you, Ross. One more person, Sherry Kajiwara, who's the Director of Customer Services. Sherry, I know you brought a chart too. If you could maybe come up and share with us this information. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Sherry Kajiwara, Director of the Department of Customer Services. As the Mayor said, tomorrow morning, all of the city's customer service centers, that's our driver license facilities and our satellite city halls, will open and be operational as normal tomorrow morning. Should a decision be made, we'll watch the storm overnight and through tomorrow. Should a decision be made that we need to close city operations for health and safety purposes, that call will be made, and we are ready to move forward with that. And our staff has been apprised. We've been having meetings, and we'll be able to manage that when the time comes.
Okay, thank you, Sherry. I think it is One more. We should probably have Lori Kahikina come up too, because people are going to say, well, is our garbage going to be picked up? Do we have a bulky item? And of course, the one as mayor that I'm always worried about is potential sewer problems because of the amount of water going into our sewer system. So, Lori, if you could talk about that, please.
Lori Kahikina, Director of Environmental Services. As Director Sasamura mentioned, please do not open up those sewer manholes. It could be tempting because your house might be potentially flooding, but when that flow goes into our sewer system and it's not designed for that, you overwhelm the collection system. So maybe you're not flooding, but your neighbor down the street could be flooding and backing up their home, backing up our treatment plants and our pump stations, and it is illegal. It is against the law to pop those manholes, sewer manholes, to drain stormwaters. We also ask that you minimize your usage. You know, as Ernie Lau said, you're going to be minimizing your drinking water, but you shouldn't be washing clothes or using the dishwasher. Very minimal use, because the rainwater does get into the sewer system and it overwhelms the pump stations, collection system, and treatment plants. On the refuse side, if the mayor does decide by tomorrow at 12 o'clock, he will announce if the trash does not get picked up. On Friday, we ask that you remove any bulky items that you had put out on the curb, and your trash cards, remove it and bring it back into your property to keep it safe, so it's not so it doesn't become a hazard. So if we do not pick up trash tomorrow, both bulky and regular, remove all of your carts and your bulky items, bring it back into your property so that it doesn't become a hazard for your neighbors and yourself. And if we do decide to shut down, that would include the transfer stations, the convenience centers, the landfill, and H Power. But again, that announcement will be made tomorrow at noon. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. As told by our Director of Communications, we have a few others that I should say a few words. So I'd like to have Michelle Nakota, Director of Parks and Rec, come up and maybe re-emphasize some of the things that I may have not said.
Sure. Yeah. Hi, I'm Michelle Nakota, the Director of Parks and Recreation. As the mayor has said, that the parks will be closed at 4 p.m. on Thursday. That's including all of our campsites as well. So we will be closed. We will refund any camp fees that were already given to us, and we will make sure that's refunded to the public as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Mark Ionamini, Director of Design and Construction.
Good afternoon. All contractors working on city projects, have been notified to secure their construction sites. Secure all construction material, anything that could be a potential to be airborne during the high winds. All road projects have been delayed. They don't have any road permits right now, so any road paving projects are on hold.
Just for one day. Hopefully just one day. Yes. Art Chalacombe, Deputy Director of Planning and Permitting.
Good afternoon. Art Chalacombe, Deputy Director, Department of Planning and Permitting. The Department of Planning and Permitting permitting offices at the Fosse Municipal Building and at Kapolei, Hale, will be opened tomorrow. However, we're waiting to see what the storm event will do, and we will make a determination whether Friday we will be open or not, and we will inform the public at that time. And also for private contractors, as Director Ionamine said, we ask that all contractors secure their materials and basically, as said by Director Sasamura, remove the gutter buddies as best management practices, remove those for this event, and immediately put them back afterwards. Thank you.
Thanks. Nicole Velasco, want to talk a little bit about neighborhood board activities? Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor. Out of an abundance of caution and in collaboration with the 4 neighborhood boards impacted on Thursday, those meetings will be canceled. And they do include number 2, which is Kuli'o'o Kalani'iki, number 8, which is Macaulay Mo'ili'ili, number 13, which is downtown, and number 31, which is Kailua. And they will just presume to carry on in the next month, and Macaulay will have a meeting next week instead. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Gerald Saito, Environmental Services. Excuse me, Department of Enterprise Services. See, you're gonna take over Lori's job. Nah.
That job would be too difficult for me. As far as the zoo is concerned, obviously we're very concerned about the safety of the animals. Currently, we're undergoing meeting with the staff and making sure that we're following all of our emergency operating procedures, making sure that we button down everything and make sure that all the animals are secure in preparation for this upcoming storm. As far as the Blaisdell is concerned, the Building Industry Association's remodeling expo is going to be rescheduled for some time in September, a date to be yet determined. And we are working with the Ballet Hawaii as far as their performance of Peter Pan, and we're still working with the promoter in terms of determining whether or not the performances will go forward. Thank you very much.
Michelle, do you want to talk about any of the events in our parks, like we know the Heart Walk? Do you have anything more you want to emphasize on that? Okay.
So on top of the camping permits, there's also park permits, which we have special events like runs or races, or any of the special events will be canceled.
Okay, I think that's about it, but I see Ginny Belding over there. You want to talk about Heart? Okay. So we talked about Iselle and the impact of Iselle, but right behind it is Julio, about 24 hours behind. And it doesn't look as strong, but it's far enough away that things could change. So the ground is going to be saturated. We're going to have a lot of rain. And I think people should not let their guard down. Once this Iselle passes by, we're going to have to get ready for the next event. Hopefully it will be less. But again, I think we got to plan for the worst. So be ready, and I think we need to be concerned about the saturated ground. It could be, more flooding could occur because the runoff, there's just no more room in the ground for absorbing the water. So we're going to be staying in touch with the community. We want to thank the members of the press for helping us do that. And with that, we're going to open to any other questions you have. And you can call out to any one of the people here or others who yeah. And we have Jun Yang here. If you want to ask more about the homeless situation, he has more information on that. But open to any and all questions you may have.
Just to be sure, as far as tomorrow, all city and county workers will be going to work as scheduled.
Correct.
But if there's problems, say in the afternoon, what happens then?
Well, first, we don't think we're going to feel the impacts of the storm till Friday. So what we're going to do is we're going to monitor the storm as it approaches and moves over the Big Island. We're going to see what happens working with Mel Kako and Peter Rai. We'll make a decision by noon tomorrow whether government operations will be in effect on Friday. If we think there's going to be danger, we don't want to invite the public to leave their homes and come conduct business in the city, nor endanger our 8,500 employees and putting them out on the road during the time of the storm's arrival. So, but we're going to make that decision by noon tomorrow, and we'll let you all know.
What about, I'm hearing from homeless advocates who are concerned because the state is closing down the parks in Kaka'ako tonight at 10 p.m. The shelters open the city shelters open tomorrow at 10 p.m. So there will be a 24-hour gap there. So what are homeless people supposed to do? And there are community groups that are trying to, get homeless people to shelter, but it's going to be hard because they're not going to be in their regular place.
I will let June answer that question, but Kyoki, one thing I want to say is, I do a lot of jogging around in that area. The homeless are not so much in the park itself. There are a few. It's really behind the park on the sidewalk, and so I think those folks will not be affected by the park closure. But we're hoping those folks will move into shelter because it's low-lying and it's exposed. But June, maybe you could add more to Kyoki's question. Thanks.
We've talked to HCDA. They are closing the parks at 10 o'clock. They are not evicting people from the park in any way. So closure is going to be just like any other operation day. They close at 10 o'clock. They're not planning on opening in the morning. That's the only difference of this storm than any other day. We are working with the service providers and the outreach workers to make sure that the people in the area know that we are providing transportation services to the nearest shelters, and those with pets, there are shelters that do allow pets as well.
Okay. Other questions for anyone?
Can you address the issue of the handy vans? We've been hearing from folks who are disabled, severely disabled, who have dialysis appointments tomorrow and Friday. What are they supposed to be doing?
Okay, Mike, could you step up and emphasize?
Sure. So if I could, I'd like Roger Morton to come up and talk about that. So for Thursday, the operations are the same, and it's only till 12 a.m., midnight, that we're calling off operations. So I'll let Roger talk about what those individuals can do.
Well, first and foremost, you know, we ask our disabled community as much as possible to look for family or friends or others that can provide transportation to them when our handy van service is not available. We are going to man our phones. We are prepared to answer some emergency calls if we have them, but our resources will be stretched. So our first action would be to ask everyone to try to look to their family and friends for the period. Now, we are canceling our reservations on Friday. They've already been made, and we begin to call back people already to inform them that we are canceling their reservation on Friday to give them time to plan their day and what it is. And that's an operation that's started already, that we're to cancel Friday reservations.
Can you say how many there are?
Well, on a normal day, there can be as many as 3,700 reservations. We normally will transport maybe 3,200, 3,100, 3,000 people a day. So it's a large operation, and our staff has started it already to start calling people back. At this point, since we just take reservations 2 days out, we have probably about 3/4 of a day of reservations that we've taken for Friday right now. Most of them would come in tomorrow anyway, so our effort will be substantial, but it won't be 3,000. It'll be somewhat less than that.
What's the, Mike said that handy van is only operational Friday for emergency reasons. Can you define that and explain that to people? Because their definition of emergency, we know that everybody calls you guys for everything.
Well, we'd like to make it a life-threatening event, really. I mean, we're not going to be accepting any reservations for social or for medical appointments. Dialysis we're going to monitor and see exactly what the dialysis centers are going to be doing. We're not sure yet exactly what the status of those centers will be. I can get that update.
Our partners at the Healthcare Association of Hawaii actually has been working with the 3 dialysis providers here to try not to schedule anything on Friday. Yeah. So we have been working with partnership with the Healthcare Association of Hawaii. Thank you.
Any more questions for Roger or Mike? Okay.
I have a question on the beaches. I think the lifeguards were going to be there at all beaches on Friday. Is that?
Answer that question.
Sure. We will be providing response service at all the beaches, which we do on a daily basis. But you will not see towers open if it's going to be a hazard to the employees. We're going to be in a response mode back in vehicles, and you can get in touch with us with 911. So we will not be as active as we normally are. The beach parks are closed. We're really advising the public, don't go in the water. It's dangerous. So you go out there, you're going with full knowledge that not all the services that are normally available are going to be there.
Okay.
Just want to clarify something, and maybe Ross can answer this about trash pickup.
Lori. See, now, look, he's giving your job to Ross.
There's bulk trash already out on some of the sidewalks that we've seen, so
Yes.
are they expected to bring those in if they can't pick them up on Friday?
Yes, we're asking that they bring it back onto their property because, I mean, even my own house, I put mine out this morning, and if they didn't pick it up this morning, I've got to pull it back because we're not sure if our guys are going to be able to pick it up.
Part of the reason, too, is if we do have sustained winds, 40 to 50 miles an hour, some of that bulky iron material becomes a projectile, can blow into something. So the other reason is for safety concerns.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm same thing with the carts. So the carts, if they've already been put out 24 hours and we do cancel for Friday service, we're going to ask that the residents pull them back.
With the bulky trash, though, I don't know if a lot of people would be willing to bring it back inside the house.
Don't get me started on bulky. I put out a huge 56-inch TV, but I gotta pull it back. I pull it back. So that's my problem.
So will the garbage call be made at noon as well? You know, you're making the call about noon for city operations
Yes.
on Friday, so the public can. We're gonna have regular trash pickup tomorrow,
Correct.
Thursday, and we'll wait to hear by noon on tomorrow. We're gonna get a call on whether city operations will be normal, whether trash will get picked up, and so on the next day on Friday.
That's correct.
Okay. Thanks.
So, Mayor,
Yes.
nearly all the decision making about operations for Friday will be made by noon tomorrow.
That's correct.
That said, can you clarify why the decision for the buses and handy vans, given it's such an inconvenience, is being made today?
Because one, I think it's very important to that population, particularly those who use our handy van, that for the reasons given that they're making reservations now, we want to make sure that they need to make adjustments to be prepared to work with their families. We want to give them advance notice. For the rest of the public, it is an inconvenience, but we're talking about safety for everyone here. But particularly for our bus service and our handy van service, it's critical that people have advance notice, and that's why we did it early.
If you are to change your mind about reopening those operations on Friday, will that be done by noon tomorrow as well, or?
I mean that if we decide to go on with full city services, would we pull back on the bus? If we get information that this storm is going to be downgraded to the point that it's really not an event, we just get some rain, minor wind, I think we'd go back to full service again.
But you were saying about opening the bus service later on Friday. That's a decision that will be made after the storm passes.
Yes, that's correct. If the storm is a storm and we're still going to be taking action, that decision will be made after Friday, after the storm passes our shores.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you. Anything else? We'll hang around. If we could ask the members of the cabinet to hang around a few more minutes, you can talk to them individually if you'd like. We appreciate your covering this, and we look forward to working with you in the next couple of days to get the information out. Thanks so much. Thanks.